and gentlemen, an interesting thought occurs to me that I would like to share in a more poetic way. उम्र भर गालिब उम्र भर गालिब मैं यही भूल करता रहा धूल चेहरे पर थी और मैं आईना साफ करता रहा धूल चेहरे पर थी और मैं आईना साफ करता रहा All my life, dear Galib, I kept making the same mistake of cleaning the mirror when the dust was on my face. There can be no transformation till the I within is transformed. Self-transformation facilitates all other transformations. To inspire us on our journey of transformation, story of self-transformation, achieving breakthrough, please welcome Guneet Monga, globally acclaimed Indian film producer, and conversing with her is Rajkamal Vempati, Head Human Resources at Axis Bank. Over to you, Rajkamal, for detailed insights into Guneet Monga's accomplishments, and thank you for hosting this discussion.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, hearty welcome, Guneet. And today was one of the days that really, as I was saying, that, you get up in life, you get up every morning with an attitude of gratitude. And I think the conversation is, for me, I'm coming to you with full of gratitude that we are having such a fantastic conversation, because having spoken to her, I realize it is not about just the template or the profile that she kind of distills out. There are many stories inside of her. And in the age of biopics, I think there is a story inside her that needs to be made. But let me introduce you, though she needs no introduction. Guneet is a notable leading Indian film producer. Everyone knows The Lunchbox, Gangs of Wasseypur, Masan, Zuban, Peddlers, and of course, how could you forget Paglet? And she's brought international acclaim to India, and many, many awards. She's broken many barriers, One of the things that touched my heart was, she hails from a middle-class family. She's broken many barriers there itself. The fact that as a mass communications graduate, she made it in Bombay as a producer without having the surname of Johar, Nadiadwala or a Chopra is notable itself. She's the executive producer of an Oscar-winning film, which not too many of us know, and a 2015 BAFTA nominee. She's won the second highest civilian French honor, and that's a story there why the French award was just won. And I don't know whether people know that she's a producer of 40 films. And all of us in India are super proud that she was voted as one of the top 12 women achievers in the global entertainment industry. As a group of learning professionals who are mostly the participants here, a group of corporate professionals, the story goes beyond just the normal template, not a traditional IIT IIM that we are used to. There's no hiding template here. She's broken barriers there itself, grew up in Delhi. Her family had one room in a big house, was witness to abuse, fights from relatives over property. And as things took an ugly turn, her parents decided to leave everything and start afresh. Guneet started working at the age of 16, doing random jobs to earn money, selling cheese, working as announcer, anchor, DJ. The second thing that we need to recognize is she didn't have money behind her to make it as a producer, but she did make 40 films. I think one of the things we should talk about is, in an industry dominated by commercial filmmakers, Guneet was not taken seriously a lot of times due to her age, her background. And people obviously, I'm sure, would have acknowledged, even after the success of Lunchbox, that, fluke success. But where it's fascinating, Guneet kind of shrugs it off so simply. And we would love to hear from her. But lastly, I think the story is bittersweet. Wish her parents had been around to see her success. Though with her hard work, she bought a house for parents, but both passed away in a span of 6 months before they could move to a new house. Commiserations for that, Guneet, but equally personally compelling story, and story of many, many breakthroughs. Would love to hear from you as you tee off the session. Your personal, in a sense, developmental arc to where you've reached now, and how do you define breakthrough?
So thank you, Rajkamal, for a wonderful introduction and pretty much a gist of my life. And good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me here. I'm excited to be on this platform. My journey, I mean, you only look back and you reflect. When you're living it day to day, you're just like, um, every day there is a new obstacle and you're trying to do your best to match the day and to, get to the end of the day. But then you reflect behind and you're just like, kuch to kiya hi hai. You know, because when you start a film, you start a project, you don't think that this will go win the Oscar. There is, I think I've rehearsed an Oscar speech in my bathroom in front of the mirror ever since. पहले filmfare का rehearse करती थी, then Oscar rehearse करने लगे. But having said that, you don't imagine a story will travel that far, but all you can do as one of the co-creators or one of the person responsible, like, from for your corporate world, like there are so many projects you take on, how do you take them to the world, how do you take them to the public, how do you make them easy to access, how do you make those projects successful. So similarly, in my world, each of these films is a project that I've had to figure out raising money, figure out casting, figuring out how the execution will happen. It should be in the budget, how the marketing and distribution will happen, and how further it will be accepted by the people. So for me, it's also, similar, like a project that needs to travel far and wide. And I hope people sample this more and more so then they can talk about it more and more. It's very easy to miss a non-big actor film. And but having said that, the work that we have done with Masan, with Lunchbox, incredible stories, but also an incredible way of putting them out there. Or Gangs of Wasseypur, or That Girl in Yellow Boots, or Dasvidanya, my pretty much second film in my life. So how to tap into that word of mouth, how to be able to accelerate that has been an everyday process. And I think it's some breakthrough every day. There is one leads to the other, and the other connection leads to another, and another door opens. And I remember somebody I really look up to in my business is an amazing writer, director, producer woman called Ava DuVernay. I had a chance to meet her in her office in LA once, and I was like, how do I figure out this world? Chalo, India mein, Bombay mein, in my industry, I've been working for a decade and a half. I know the executives, I know the offices, I know who, where, who to write to. But how do you even get to LA, one day land, and you're just like, how do I start? Where do I start? And while I was asking her this, she's like, you don't need any permission. Firstly, there's nobody going to open the door. You have to break through that door. And I was like, okay, I was very young when she was telling me that. And I was very excited to meet her in person. And she told me that. She's like, you have to break through that door. And then I was like, which door? Like, kaun sa door todu? Kahan, kaise? But really, when I reflect back, that really helped me so much, because nobody's going to introduce you. Nobody's going to, you don't have to wait for permission to accelerate your ideas, So having that self-faith in your own ideas and showing up for them day to day is a breakthrough. And that leads one thing to the other, one thing to the other. And of course, failure is part of it, but how we come back to failure is the story that we sit here and share.
So Guneet, let's start from the very beginning. You talked about having done various jobs, right? Your first story, the story of making a film itself is inspiring. It's like my daughter asking, मैं ना आजकल film बनाने जा रही हूँ, मुझे पैसा दे दो.
Correct.
And you talked about seeking no permission, but I think you practiced it every day, and there were no barriers in your mind. That's what you said. There's no barriers. But the story is fascinating. Can you just recount for us कि भाई film कैसे बनाई and why Bombay? दिल्ली में भी बन सकती थी, कोई ad film बना लेती.
Yeah, so I started my career working in Delhi. I was a DJ, I was a car rally driver. I did so many odd jobs. I was an exhibition host, I was an MC. I what all worked weekends to, and I'd always say yes to work. For me, it was always like, can I go and take this opportunity and do my best? I would never like money and my worth, I never had that disconnect. I was like, whatever it is, I'll get to know two new people. Let's just go to it. Maybe that'll lead to another thing. It's been my attitude always. So it's just something ingrained. Like I get more excited on any opportunity that comes my way. And I'm like, how can I show up in the best way for this? So one day my neighbor in Delhi, his name is Kamlesh Agarwal. He was on the first floor. हम तो rent पे थे second floor पर, and he said, तूने mass communication पढ़ा है, and I'd like to ask you if you can make छोटे बच्चों का cute videos, and हम एक studio डाल लेंगे दिल्ली में, and we will make these beautiful films, and their parents will pay for it. And I was like, मैंने इसलिए नहीं पढ़ा mass communication, and I think it was early 20s. I was 20 when he told me this. And I was like, आपको कितने पैसे डालने हैं स्टूडियो में? He's like, I was thinking 50 lakh की तो इन्वेस्टमेंट होगी, इक्विपमेंट लेना है, जगह रेंट, we'll build up the studio. And I was like, why don't you give me that money and I'll go to Bombay and make a film? So I was working in the film industry in Delhi, but that is limited to international films. That's limited to the job of execution. All these big films, from Batman to Eat, Love, Pray to, just amazing big films come to India for shoot, and a lot of them hub their main offices in Delhi because the ministry is in Delhi and the permissions happen from Delhi. So I worked on a lot of them as a transport manager, as a location manager, as, just intern, just somebody who would translate for somebody, be a translator, be a host, good morning, sir, good evening, sir, pick up, sir, your car is here, sir. Done a lot of that in Delhi. And then I was fascinated to come to Bombay and be a part of the Hindi film industry. So I was like, मुझे 50 lakh रुपए दे दो, मैं Bombay जाके film बनाऊंगी. And I was 21, I came to Bombay, and I literally, because of my Delhi work, I just knew a lot of, light boys and catering people, and जितने लोगों को हम Bombay से professionals, equipment वाले लोग, जिनको हम बॉम्बे से बुलाते थे for our Delhi shoot. So I knew a lot of below the line workers, and मैं उनसे, they were my friends, and I used to hire them from Delhi on international films. And I started asking them कि आप किसी ऐसे डायरेक्टर को जानते हो जिसके पास कोई कहानी है, किसी राइटर को जानते हो? And I literally used to sit in a food court of Infinity Mall every day and say, मेरे पास 50 lakh रुपए, आपके पास कहानी है? मुझे 50 lakh रुपए एक पिक्चर में डालने हैं. And I have met the whole industry because half of them I know judged me कि इसके तो 50 lakh हम रख लेते हैं पहले. पहले तो हम इसको 4 मीटिंग करने के लिए कंसल्टेंसी फीस ले लेते हैं. So just you meet all kinds of people, and navigating through that, you're just like, नहीं, मुझे कहानी चाहिए, आपके पास कहानी, and उसका बजट कितना होगा? So I knew execution, and that's how I met this incredible director, Subhash Kapoor, who also had access to some money, and then I raised another 25, and we both put in 75 lakhs each, and we made a film called Say Salam India, which is a children cricket film in 2006. We were shooting it for the release of 2007 during the World Cup, which we thought we were very smart in doing, making a cricket film 1 year before and tapping into all the brands, and हमारी तो marketing भी आसानी से हो जाएगी, distribution भी आसानी से हो जाएगी. And when that film released, it was the week when India lost the World Cup. And not even the World Cup, it came out of the elementary round, forget reaching finals. It was disastrous 2007 World Cup. And मेरी picture एक छोटी सी भी release हुई थी, and you pass through so many hurdles of getting that movie in cinema, from marketing to getting slots. I remember making calls to cinema owners saying, "एक show और add कर दो." You can only make that much money as much you have people on the seats, and only those many shows will allow you that. So I used to just be like, एक show और दे दो, at least ये वाला दे दो, morning show दे दो, वहाँ पे college students आएंगे, word of mouth फैलेगा, रात का show दे दो, because हमेशा बड़ा picture को best timing, convenient timing वाले shows मिलते हैं. And they were just like, day 2 of our release, they called us and they said, कोई 2 महीने पुराना picture दे दो, cricket का picture नहीं चाहिए, because हमारे cinema जल जाएंगे, because India has come out of the elementary round. So literally a film that technically released came back to our offices without a release, like those prints, us time pe prints hote the, 7 bade reele, they came back, And I was just like, what will I do? How do I even go back home? By the time I was 22, and I was like, I literally have to cross Mr. Agarwal's house to reach my house. And how do I do this? And he was also like, अच्छे माँ बाप हैं, अच्छे घर की लड़की है, दे देते हैं 50 लाख रुपए. I didn't know how I reached a point where I did everything right, but there was no way of recovering the money.
Did you make money finally by
Yes, I actually went
your
to
hustle?
I remember I was hired to run the production for Gajni, and I left that. I worked on it for 1 month, and I was very inspired on working on a big Hindi film as the head of the production, which I used to do for international films. And being in and out of Amir's house, taking those decisions, it was very inspiring for a young executive. But I left that after a month of working there, and I was like, I need to go get my investors' money back. So I went to my school and I asked my principal, we had 2,000 kids in our school, and I was like, आप सारे बच्चों से 50 रुपए लेकर मेरा पिक्चर देखने आओगे? And I booked a cinema hall, and I went to the cinema hall and I said, सुबह 9 से 12 के शो में how much do you make? He said 5 से 7,000. I said, मैं आपको 10,000 दूंगी, and it is a 1,000-seater. So 50 rupees per kid, 50,000 रुपए का शो, 10,000 रुपए सिनेमा वाले के, 40,000 was mine. And the show went so well because literally the film was hitting all the spots to directly its target audience. And उनके हर बॉल पर ऐसे सांसें, you could hear 1,000 kids being exuberated or just being so happy with the film. And I was like, this is why we make this is why we are in the business, to get this reaction. And then when you don't get that reaction, so I ended up doing 350 such shows, went one school to another, hired my college kids as my interns, got them internship letter from the studio that distributed the film, Ad Labs. And I had 20 people in my team, activating one school after another, and in Delhi. We took 9 months of our life, and per show we made 40,000 rupees. Plus I went and sold the interval to brands and said, I'll make the interval 15 minutes and you have your target audiences. So I remember Surf Daag Achhe Hain came in, Ketchup came in, and also sampling, and it was so much fun. Ended up selling all our audio CDs. I used to stand outside the hall with the audio CDs, and nobody wanted to touch the audio CDs. One Punjab distributor made it, and his cost was 10 rupees. We were standing there and selling them for 25 rupees, which otherwise in the market would have been sold for 100 rupees, but it went on a total waste. So even 15 rupees markup on everything, we made our entire money back like this. It took 9 months of my life, but in the process, I think discovered a way of distribution, which is Subha 9 se 12 ka slot, which is school to school distribution, which is a real target audience. Because in Indian cinema, if you notice, we don't really have a culture of making children's films because we have a broken distribution system. Our system is addressed to very youth, very aspirational, very escapist cinema. The minute you want to do like a beautiful children film, there's a culture of children film around the world, but not in India because of lack of a distribution system. So yes, I was able to get the entire money back, and till date, I remember Mr. Agarwal telling me that, it's a business deal, it's fine. We signed a contract. I understand it's not your fault. India came out of the World Cup. And I was like, no, if I don't recover this money, I don't deserve to be a filmmaker. So I think some sort of self-reflection was already always there, and trying to do our best, whatever we can. But yeah, I've always been very, very proud of this story, and I'm, till date in touch with him, and that I was able to recover his money.
Wonderful. So, and Medha also, I see some audience polling happening. Medha says, it was so lovely that thinking out of the box and just leaving no scope for just, do till you achieve your goal. So that hustle was very much there. And I think the entrepreneurial zeal, ki paisa mera hai, right?
Yeah. Ownership.
Often in life, when I look at corporates, let's look at corporates. Most leaders will say, "Acha, mujhe kuch business karna hai, to give me the best team, give me the best talent." Like in your film, you said best hero, best heroine, best story, writer and director and all of that. If everything's best, then what's your role? And you said that there are possibilities that exist, and you don't need that. Resource myopia is what constrains us. So if I were to just talk about, from your perspective, what are 3 things that you feel are needed to achieve this zeal, to achieve a breakthrough? Because you said मतलब दरवाजे तोड़ो, that दरवाजे तोड़ने वाली zeal, what are the three things that you feel are needed, and what can we replicate in our sphere of life?
I think I think we generally take ourselves very seriously, so there should be humor in life. And it's fine. We fail all the time. We win all the time. I think moderation, to learn moderation, कि मतलब picture flop होने के बाद extreme depression ना हो और Oscar जीतने के बाद extreme घमंड ना हो. So somewhere in between lies the magic. That I remember the day we won the Oscar, a journalist called me and said, "Ab to aapki zindagi badal gayi na?" And that was the question. He's like, "You won an Oscar, like the first producer to win an Oscar." And I was like, "हाँ, but मैं अभी भी economy ticket में वापस आ रही हूँ. मुझे पता नहीं कैसे बदली है जिंदगी. खुश हूँ मैं इस moment के लिए life में. But I hope my next film gets funded when I come back to India, and I hope it is a little bit more easier now. So I hope, and I hope that people have more faith in, because I've always worked with a very young team. I've always worked with I've worked with people who have learned with me in the business and then have stayed with me for over a decade and a half now. My producing partner is 5 years younger than me, and we've always been, both of us, we've never worked in other structures in Hindi cinema. So and that's why I think we're not jaded, and I've always said I want to work with people who want to work with me, who would kill to work with me. I want to work with them, because you need innovation all the time, and I think that's where we stop ourselves. You're because it's a project. अब वो कैसे release हो रहा है, वो कैसे market हो रहा है, it can be innovated all the time. There is no precedence. You cannot be me too to उसने कैसे किया तो हम भी वैसे ही करेंगे, हम भी आ गए, so उसके लिए तो है जितने लोग आपके साथ डेटा के साथ बैठते हैं. Like I remember for Lunchbox, people told me all the marketing executives across the studios were like, देखो आप बहुत अच्छे इंसान हो, आपने अच्छी पिक्चर बनाई है, पर we have some stats to run by you that films are really seen by 16 to 21-year-old. That is the footfall. And आपका तो वैसी पिक्चर 40-45 plus है, एक गाना नहीं है, ऐसे कुछ good looking slow motion shots नहीं है, इतना मतलब इतना close to reality in Hindi cinema नहीं करते लोग, so they need escapism, they need chiffon sarees in slow motion, they need songs, and they need a hero to come save the girl, and just all that. He's like कुछ भी नहीं है. So 45-50 year के plus वाले लोग ना, वो तो सिर्फ राजू हिरानी की फिल्म के लिए आते हैं, वो भी week 4 में, week 3 में, जब इतना सुन लेते हैं. Going to cinema is so expensive for a regular family to show up. So they plan that age group people coming out. And this age group only comes for 2 or 3 times in a year. So this is stats across the country, across every studio. And the nutshell of that was, आप एक काम करो, picture release ही मत करो. क्योंकि कोई देखेगा नहीं, तो आपके marketing पैसे भी नहीं recover होंगे. Forget the money that you've produced this film in. Cost of production तो दूर की बात है. You should not release this film. That marketing will also not be recovered, because 16 to 21-year-old kids will get bored on this film. It's an older people love story. And how do we even promote it? There's not one song. So I was just like, yeah, you're right. इतना मतलब, and I'm in such a subjective industry that यहाँ तो हर कोई आकर बोलता रहता है किसी को कहानी समझ नहीं आएगी, और मुझे सबसे अच्छा ही लगता है कि सबका एडवाइस देखो, मुझे तो आ गई समझ, लेकिन किसी और को नहीं आएगी. क्यों, बाकी गधे हैं, आप सबसे इंटेलिजेंट हो. But that's across, see, I understand what you're trying to do, but what you're trying to present, people will not understand. So it's always, I think there are roadblocks in every form, in every way that come in front of you. And you're just like, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to figure it out. How do I innovate finding the marketing money? And that's when I went to Karan Johar in the business. And I said, I'd just love for you to see the film. And it was the first film he released. And with his name, we got the marketing money. But that step, that was innovation. And then, of course, as business, they have gone and released so many films. They did Bahubali after that as releasing partners, but from a production house to being, somebody who's becoming a distributor, the Lunchbox was the first one that we worked together on.
Wow.
So I was just like, मुझे नहीं दे रहे हो ना marketing पैसे. But if maybe somebody who has a larger footprint and has more marketing windows open for him, maybe you'll give it to him. And he loved the film. And I met him in Cannes when, we were winning the Audience Choice Award there. And I was like, I need you for releasing this in India. Would you please do it? He's like, we've never done it. I was like, let's try. So that was innovation, and Lunchbox became a thing in India because it was put out in a way and everybody was talking about it. But if I didn't do that, it would have gotten lost, because everybody's like, "Kaun dekhne aayega?" It didn't get into how do you get a conversation going in the pop culture? So not only making the film, but then taking the conversation all the way that it becomes, a bedroom conversation. So yeah.
I didn't know that you had your own role to ensure expansion of Karan Johar's business. Like, you were instrumental in helping him become something that he is today. It's fascinating. I think innovation is a streak. Let me just remind the participants as well. You said, don't take yourselves too seriously. Work with the right set of people.
Work with people who want to work with you.
People who want to work with you. Be resource rich in your mindset. Have the right partners. Ensure that they get. So talking about innovation, even this entire association with France and being a Francophile, I didn't know that you won the highest award. Why you? And and there is another story why we didn't celebrate it as much. But and this is a story for all the participants. Please listen to her carefully. And it's again her entire spirit of innovation.
So India has 100% equity industry. Matlab yahan, a human being or a studio, anybody, to make any film, you have to raise the money. It'll be 100% equity. And as the producer and as the in charge of the show, you need to be able to make it in budget and release it. It's very simple. Release it and then get the money and return it and then share the profit, right? So we have to we adhere to the equity rules, and they're just like, bank mein itna interest milta hai, startup mein itna milta hai, tum kitna rate of interest doge, basic interest and then profit. And why should somebody invest in movies as an asset class or as a business opportunity? So I'm constantly making business plans and making all of this. So this pressure has always been there, and it's very interesting. Sometimes my relatives come and tell me that you don't work with Akshay Kumar, Hrithik Roshan. I was like, I don't think they work with me. It's not the other way around, So I again work with people who would work with me. So again, being Vicky Kaushal or Huma or Shweta or Richa or Chadda, just amazing actors, and we all kind of started together in our films together. And but what I was trying to tell you was that I then signed up for a course. Also, another thing is constantly be open to learning.
Yeah.
So my company is called Sikhya Entertainment, which means keep growing, keep learning. It's a Punjabi word of Sikh se Sikhya. So I think I'm a constant learner. I'm a learner of life, and I get very curious to learn new things, even about new businesses. So seeker, be a seeker, because we don't know enough, and how much can we're limited to our professions and our businesses and our circles. So I signed up for a course, which was 1 week in Halifax in Canada, 1 week in Berlin, and 1 week in New York. And I got a scholarship. There were only 2 people. There were only 2 spots from rest of the world, which is whole of Asia, Australia, Africa. There were only 2 spots, and I was one of them. I wrote an application and I got a scholarship to be a part of this program. It was producing program, and it was a mid-career producing program where they took all these producers who had made 1-2 films, and they were telling them how legal processes, global processes. So it was very interesting. So it was a 3-week course spread over 6-8 months in this, and they would give us a lot of homework, and also professionals from the business would come and host that course. And suddenly that's where I was told that the whole of Canada, the whole of Europe, the whole of Australia, so I was just like, government, so they're taxpayers' money, because they look at cinema as an art form, and to take their country's conversation and the art forward, it is the taxpayers' money that goes into the art. It's seen as an art form. But in India, it's not like that. It's 100% equity. It's a business. It's a dhanda, and you have to operate by those rules. So I was like, ऐसे भी होता है कि no pressure of returning money. I was so excited, and I kept asking that question because it was so new to me. And they were like, yeah, the government approves the script. And I was like, how? The government approves? They said, we have executives who are in the government offices. They read, they approve, and then they sanction the budget. And every year we have allotment of budget. And her state ka alag hai, her state ka alag tax rebates. And it was so interesting to learn all of that. I was like, how can I access it? They said, you can only access it if your country has a treaty. And I looked up, India has treaties signed with some 87 countries. And in 1985, we had signed a treaty with France. And I was like, this is amazing. So my ugly picture jo bana rahi hu, I am going to reach out to France and figure out how to get into the government money. And that was Lunchbox. And I was the first one to use the treaty in 2012 for a film we released in 2013. And Lunchbox went on to become Lunchbox. And I was able to mix equity from India, which was 45%. And I was able to get tax money and free money, government grants for 55% of the budget. And that reduced the pressure of Gana Dalo, kahan se banao. I was constantly, because you are responsible of returning that equity. But suddenly for an Irfan Khan film, and that 45% of the budget was like, acha itna to risk le sakte hain, let's try. So it was a German and a French co-production, and I was the first one to use the treaty, and then I was the second one to use it for Masan. Till late, abhi tak nahi kuch khas use hui treaty. So, when you read up about opportunities that are available, so I was able to find new money in Europe for our movies, and similarly, there's Canada, there's Australia, there's a whole lot of opportunity out there. There's New Zealand, which all industries work on government grants. So that was a learning that I had, and I was able to do co-productions and advance our relationship between India and France, and that's how France loves us.
It's your story consistently is about breaking thoda sort, figure out, whether it's money, distribution, marketing, and the stories that you want to tell. I watched Paglet when it was released, and the first day, and I was really gripped with the opening scene, the death scene tha. And then later, I realized the entire surprise factor was it's a coming of age of a young widow.
Yeah.
Right? For you, and if I look at your career trajectory, your stories are very different. For a person from Delhi to produce Gangs of Wasseypur, which became such a cult movie, to figure out that right story, even though you may not be from the milieu, is itself fascinating. And you talked about learning, ensuring that you are seeking not only content stories, but you're upgrading your skills. The fact for all of us in corporate is the shelf life of our skills is reducing. Obsolescence is there. And I see a question from Sapnesh as well. How do you ensure that you move from project to project with the same zeal as well? So there are two questions here, Guneet. What is your advice for people to expand the thought process and build a growth mindset to have this diversity of, experiences, diversity of thought? And second is keeping the momentum of learning through and through from when you run from one project to another.
Firstly, don't be afraid to ask. I think we self-censor ourselves so much. Ki kya hi puche, we'll be the stupid one. I have this trick of, in a room full of intellectuals, in a room full of जिन्होंने ज़्यादा दुनिया देखी है, ज़्यादा सिनेमा देखा है. When I started off, I used to be, you're always boxed, right? People have to box you. They have to define you. Peer group has to be like, ye acha aisi hai. So I used to be called Punjabi, instead, I think I have owned the word hustle. I am an hustler, and I love and I cherish the word, and I cherish the description about myself. But मुझे पहले ना बुरा लगता था कि ऐसे बोलते हैं पंजाबी money minded है, but I am a producer. I am not a director who's coming and telling a story. I need to be in front of investors, and I need to tell them what they're drawing back. So of course I need to talk the numbers, and they're always putting box, and you're always breaking that. But there's one little story I want to tell you about, one little trick that I usually use in a room full of conference room. I was like, I have a silly question, so but I'm not scared of asking. You can think that it is a stupid question, so let's just say it like it's a stupid question, but I just like to know for my knowledge. I was a little lost about this point, so thoda sa self-deprecating, but more like, I will ask, I want to know what you reply to my this point, how do you think? And don't be scared of your dreams. I have really big dreams. I have to win multiple Oscars. Feature film के लिए लेना, अपना नाम लिखा वो उस पर चाहिए, and यहाँ पे trophy बड़ी होनी चाहिए. Why not? I remember there was an author that followed me for a couple of years, and that book was published in 2018, and the book is called Change Makers, and I think they followed 21 women in India in the industry. I was the only producer that they followed. And for 2 years, they interviewed us, and those 2 years were my self-doubt years. And, and I have just taken them through my life. And it was very interesting to be interviewed periodically every quarter. And the last line of my chapter is, I'm going to win an Oscar and it's coming to me very soon. And 2019, I won the Oscar. So this book was published in 2018. So don't be scared of your dreams. Don't self-censor yourself. Pucho to say, sapna to dekho, what if it is just there around the corner for you? So when Gangs of Wasseypur happened, I don't take the credit for the creative of Gangs of Wasseypur. It is all the amazing writer-director, Anurag Kashyap, for that. But I was very curious, how will this film translate and travel around the world? We were selected in Cannes. It was 5.5 hours. It's a commitment to come and see 5.5 hours. I think in Cannes, we just gave gamchas as gifts with Gangs of Wasseypur written on it. It became a thing. Everybody at Cannes in 2012 was wearing their gowns and their jackets and wearing a Gangs of Wasseypur gamcha. It became like a thing to go to attend the premiere, just little things, And then I was like, how does this go to, because Hindi films actually only get distributed to the diaspora. Our diaspora is big. And we have not really tapped into the non-diaspora. And like how Korean cinema has or Iranian cinema has. So I was very curious. And actually, to tell you a fact here, which is not very well known, that I was able to sell Gangs of Wasseypur to US market as an 8-part series, a 40-minute series. So we cut up the film. It did not release like 5.5-hour film. It is the first Hindi language mini series with a 13 in US as an 8-part episodic on Netflix. And that was even Netflix's first Hindi language mini series that they took. So in 2013, they came to India only in 2016 and 17. So it was very interesting that, I was able to meet them. I was able to ask them, what does it take? They were like, we can't put this on our service. How will people commit to 5.5 hours? But if you give us episodic, and I remember it was like, who does that? And their rules, ki piche credits nahi aayenge, ye nahi aayenge, just such a new learning of sorts. So the first series that actually went from India was Gangs of Wasseypur, as an 8-part mini series. So then you start figuring out how you are putting it next to Godfather and how you are positioning it in a way that translates and has a global effect. So there's constant innovation needed, and that only comes with, I think, a sense of wonder, a sense of seeking and learning, and just saying, why not? Because you're always told aisa nahi ho sakta. Wo kyun nahi ho sakta? Kisne bola? And if I try, you'll fail, na? But what if you fly? मतलब मैंने वो 4-8 पिक्चर अपने टाइम पर अपने एडिटर के साथ यहाँ पर खुद काटा, उसका English subtitles kiya. It is an expense, and it is tiring, after a point of time when you've lived with the film for 3-4 years and now it's released, it's done. But to open a new market, to open a new territory, it's new investment that you have to put, and it be a couple of months of work. ज़्यादा वो लोग नहीं लेंगे ना. But what if वो लोग ले लें? I remember one of my mentors, I've always been like, from you to ask you a couple of questions. And I've had these beautiful mentors around the world who have expanded my knowledge about what. So she was great friends with Martin Scorsese. And I was in New York, and I was like, do you think I can go to his house to give Gangs of Wasseypur ka CD? And she's like, sure, I'll call him. And I literally found out his address. in New York East Village, knocked at his door, and I was like, sir, just want you to see it at your time. That's fine. Wrote my email ID behind. 6 months later, we got an email from him, that I loved the movie. And suddenly you're just like, oh my God, this is who we look up to, and we just want them to see it. I remember Tarantino sitting alone in a breakfast at Venice Film Festival, and I was like, "Can I share the table with you?" And in that breakfast, we exchanged emails, and I've had a beautiful conversation with them because I was just like, "I love what you do." And even Karan for lunchbox happened because he was having dinner at Cannes, and I was like, "Hey, I just want to tell you my film is winning here, and nobody in India wants to touch it. Would you release it?" That's how you. But पूछो, क्यों मत पूछो यार? पूछ के तो देखो, मना नहीं करेगा ना इंसान. It's fine. And that takes me back to when I was 18. My dad actually thought that इसको ना insurance agent बना देते हैं because उनके दोस्तों को वो इंश्योरेंस बेच देंगे और मुझे सालाना कुछ पैसे आते रहेंगे जैसे जैसे वो इंश्योरेंस रिन्यू होगी. So this was his grand plan for me. The minute I turned 18, he admitted me to Ritu Nanda. He got me admission into Ritu Nanda Insurance School in GK2, and I went there for like a 2-month insurance agent after that. And this 18-year-old, getting into a corporate office, wearing like business suit and feeling very empowered with amazing stationery that they gave me. Now, they give you so many forms and these diaries and just everything branded, like what happened. So it was very beautiful for me. I was very excited about that. But one thing that I learned from that business was that whole 2-3 months of learning was, you go to your sect of people, right? आप और middle class लोगों को जानते हो, and आप उनको कह रहे हो कि देखो आप हमें पैसे दे दो क्योंकि आप मरने वाले हो, and उसके बाद आपकी फैमिली का भला हो जाएगा. वो इतने existential day-to-day में जी रहे हैं that how do you further get them to give you money for something that they're not going to even live through to see, and a commitment on year or month on month, and कुछ SIPs कर लो या जो भी insurance का जैसे भी आप premium pay करना चाहते हो. And I was just told, and that I have made a mantra of my life in insurance. They said 9 people are going to say no to you and 1 person is going to say yes. So now when no's happen, I'm just counting in my head. I'm just like, I enter rooms, I was like, फटाफट मना कर दो, फटाफट, मुझे देना ही नहीं तुम, फटाफट मना कर दो, मना ही करना है ना, अब भी कर दो. Because then I'm just like, my yes is coming closer. So this has just worked for me as a mantra, that I get excited on no's. I celebrate the no because the yes is coming. You're just like, it's right around the corner. You just have to keep doing it. कितने हुए? अभी 6 लोगों ने मना किया ना, चलो. Let's keep trying. So yeah.
Guneet, I think there is a divine thing in your journey and arc, because the fact that prepared you to be where you are as well, right? Celebrating no. How many of us really talk about that? Let me just change the gears, and it is also part of your story where you've broken barriers. You said in the Change Makers thing, you were the only women producer. I in our interactions don't see gender as a main identity, right? You talk about hustle. No, bolte ye Punjabi hai. Punjabiyat is your identity. Money-minded being your identity. Hustle, sales-oriented is your identity. But as I said in the introduction, you don't look like Karan Johar, you don't look like Sajid Nadidwala, or even Aditya Chopra. You look you. Right? I'm sure there were challenges. And the part that you said is also, you're not constrained by labels. Sabko box karne ki aadat hai, and your thing has been out of box. The second thing I heard consistently is have mentors and have people who are well-wishers. So create that network of community. But did your mentoring process start early, or were you also a little unconstrained in your mindset? You didn't define yourself by gender. And how did you manage? I'm sure the bias or some ceiling, etc. existed. How did you manage that?
Oh, it existed all the time. I managed it day to day. When I was 26 and producing Gangs of Wasseypur, nobody took me seriously because I was just young. Isko kya pata hai? ये थोड़ा हमें feedback, ये थोड़ा सिखाएगी, ये थोड़ा. So I used to just be bullied across from the studio CFO to CEO to everyone. Just bullying in the room, asking me, just, ye report lekar aao, wo batao, so just really, and I remember coloring my hair white and wearing a sari and praying for a chashma, jo permanent ho chuka hai, unfortunately. Just to look seriously. And people at that time used to ask me, how old are you? I used to dread that question. And I used to be like, guess. My reply used to be guess. And if you Google my pictures, I was 3 times my size. And they used to like, late 30s. And I'm like, perfect. I'm now late 30s. And this is what I used to do 15 years ago. Just be like, yeah, you're around that. So I used to take pride in being older, that when I'm older, people will take me that I'm more wise. But this is how you react to a situation, and you can see post the Me Too movement, I do realize that, looking back, that there was biases, but I could not even articulate them because you don't discuss it. There is no peer group, you don't join those dots together. ऐसे ही होता होगा, and ऐसे ही होता है, तो आप उसको डे टू डे कैसे रिएक्ट करते हो, वैसे ही रिएक्ट करते हो, जहाँ आप how do you make sure that your paperwork is fine, you are checking all the boxes in business and in the profession and showing up in the best way. So I think there's been a lot of judgment. There has been always like, acha ye kya karegi, acha ye to fir lunchbox. Actually, after lunchbox I dipped and I was depressed for a good 2 years, and because I thought that after lunchbox my life would be easier. There will be a red carpet rolled out and there will be more investments available for stuff that I want to do. But that was completely opposite. It was more like, this is a fluke, बार बार थोड़ा ना होता है. ये तो इसकी वजह से चली, ये तो उसकी वजह से चली. And then I was like, yeah, you're right. Maybe एक बार हो गया, बार बार नहीं होता. And I was unable to function with that thought. That fearlessness went, because I was like, now I was scared because ये fluke हो गया ना. Because success, each of us, you want to get to a point, something which is a global success. But when that happens, you're like, okay, how will I repeat it? I didn't have to take that pressure. I only grew in life to realize I didn't have to take that pressure. And I also went deeply spiritual. And I had learned to be grateful for every little thing, for my day that I'm waking up, for this conversation we are having. And I don't know how many people are listening to this right now. So just grateful for every little thing and not taking that self pressure. बहुत self pressure लिया, बहुत self judge किया, बहुत imposter syndrome से जिया कि मुझे थोड़ा आता होगा, या वो तो सही बोल रहे हैं, उन्होंने इतनी दुनिया देखी है, उन्होंने इतना सिनेमा देखा है, of course वो तो सही बोल रहे हैं. But then slowly untangling each of those thoughts in my mind, of course going to therapy and having a deep spiritual journey that I've had for a couple of years after Lunchbox, 2-3 years, that I was able to be okay about my journey and be like, okay. And also this burden of overachiever, very young, so you have to excel. The har cheez mein na, and I realized that for everything I was running in a dense fog and just shooting darts ki kuch to lagega. But that takes every piece of energy from you. Not every strategy works, but you're constantly like, ye bhi kar lete hain, 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 har cheez mein energy dalo. So slowly had to learn how to say no, what to say no to, and how to prioritize yourself, how to prioritize your energy. जितने आज तक relations बनाए हैं, पहले I used to overbook my day, like 10 meetings in a day. Now I'm more conscious about doing 3 and having those follow-ups. उससे ज़्यादा brain space ही नहीं है, फिर कर लेंगे. But yes, this is, I feel like level 2, level 3 in life. Level 1, I needed to open all kinds of doors. Now that all kinds of doors are open, I'm just like, which is the right fit? Every time there's an opportunity, I'm just like, where all can I go wrong? What all can happen wrong? Let's cover that. Let's discuss the difficult conversations. Let's set expectations right. If I'm making we made haram. Day one, I told people that I need 10 people to give me 10 lakh rupees each. There was no concept of crowdfunding back then. And I told all those 10 people जो मुझे 10 लाख रुपए दे रहे थे कि आपको पैसे वापस नहीं मिलेंगे. Maybe we can lose it, but we'll make something very special. And we're going on an experiment. Both those films did extremely well. Peddlers went to Cannes, all the investors went to Cannes. So it was more like an experience thing that let's learn this business. So I think being honest with yourself and not projecting that I am making a blockbuster, and because हम लोग सपना बेचते हैं ना, तो you have to be honest कि हम क्या दे रहे हैं और वो कितना होगा, वो कैसे होगा, and I think showing up for that is the most important. And then double down on your tribe, you know, find your tribe. You will learn, in life we will learn toxic positivity, you will learn all kinds of experiences that people will walk into your life, will judge you, will tell you usko kya aata hai, you're a fluke, you're a social, I've been said you're a social climber, because I used to hustle so much, you know. And but over a period of time I have built self-faith and just been like, no, I'm fine, and this is who I am, and I want to celebrate myself. And the minute that switch changed, the world started celebrating me in retrospective. You know, the love that I get now for Lunchbox and Masan and Gangs of Wasseypur put together, I did not get this in 2012 and 13. You know, so there was a lot of self-doubt. But these are all, you know, longer format stories, and I was always trying to बहुत चीजें फर्स्ट टाइम की ना, बहुत मतलब ऐसी कहानियां भी फर्स्ट टाइम बोली, सो उनके इफेक्ट्स भी बहुत साल बाद आई रियलाइज्ड. सो या
Last question. It's so fascinating. We just have, I think, 5 minutes, and I think the questions are just pouring in. But last question, and I think I'll just try to kind of, there were questions on how do you deal with criticism, how do you handle drafts. But I think the question that I really like is, you know, no judgments. How did you make that switch for yourself, you know, celebrating your success? And I think, especially given the sessions on learning, that's the biggest learning, you know, solutions are really inside and the switch is inside. So how did you go about doing that?
You know, it's a very interesting thought that, you know, breakthroughs I think happen with thought processes. You know, there's not like suddenly aapka bank balance change jayega. I think it's all work day to day that we do. But breakthrough happens in the mind first, right? Success is a state of mind. You know, peace is a state of mind. Joy, experiencing joy. You know, I've had the most glorious, beautiful moments, and I've been so stressed about them that I've not been able to enjoy them. You know, Gangs of Wasseypur के प्रीमियर में मैं ये सोच रही थी कि यहाँ पर सब लोग खाना कहाँ खाएंगे, पूरा भरा हुआ है. How will I take 60 people out for dinner after this? You know, because everybody wants to sit down and chat. And I was so stressed about this that I missed the whole premiere trying to book a restaurant. So that is life, you know. So I was just like, I need to enjoy those moments, take that breather, you know, allow myself to take that breather. So I think a breakthrough happened in my mind because we कि हम अच्छे लोग हैं, हम मेहनत करते हैं, या जो भी, we describe ourselves in a way. I felt abandoned by my parents because I lost them when I was 23, and I used to feel like, you know, and I was projecting a lot of grief into work, channelizing all of that, doing extra. Subha 9 baje se raat ke 4 baje, nobody is asking me to work this. But I used to not go back home because Bombay mein is sharing apartment with 4 other girls. I didn't really look forward to that. But over a period of time, I realized and I internalized grief, you know, and I think that was my biggest teacher, where I just, one day the breakthrough happened that the worst is behind me. Nothing can be worse than that. I had 5,000 rupees in my account, and I'd lost both my parents. I'm the only child, and they didn't have any insurances. We used to stay on rent. I had bought a house. That builder did not finish it in time. And then he wanted to keep the house and not even give me that money because we had some cash payments and whatever. He was my dad's friend. And he was like, "Ye to 23 saal gaya na." You know, so there are constant troubles that come your way, legal and family and financial, and constantly. And I'm just like, isse zyada bura kya hoga? Jo sabse zyada bura tha, wo to ho gaya. So it's only going to be upwards. You know, everything is only going to be upwards. So can I celebrate it? So where life was and where life is, it is, I mean, I wish they were around to see, you know, the office, the teams, the 40-member team that we run, the life that I've been able to build over this, over a decade now. But I just feel there's so much to be grateful for. And then you switch to a state of abundance than a state of scarcity. You know, otherwise you're constantly like, मुझे कौन पैसे देगा? You know, मैं कहाँ से raise कर लूँगी? मतलब मैं तो जानती भी नहीं हूँ, मेरा तो फ्रेंड सर्कल भी नहीं है, मैं तो कुछ ऐसे स्कूल में भी नहीं गई जहाँ सारे बिलियनर्स के बच्चे आते हैं. So it is more like, why not, I can just try and keep trying, and that I want to just narrate this one little thing that in 2010 I lost my parents in 2009. In 2010 I had a short film that I had helped somebody produce, came on the Oscars, and it was in the top 5, and it's such a big deal to be in top 5, and I literally had 5,000, and I was doing a job in a production in Balaji. I was the head of Once Upon a Time in Mumbai, because I didn't have it in me to produce. I had produced Dasvidani and Salam India before that, but uske baad month after parents went, it takes a lot to produce, to produce a movie, and you just need a lot of zeal. You have to, I to literally brew the story for a couple of months, because mujhe pata once I say yes, I'm going to be signed up for it for 2-3 years. You can't fall out of it. You have to see through it. And seeing the end of it is more important. So this I wanted to attend it, and I wanted to attend it with my young, I actually made the film, who actually did the Hindi dialogues and made the film. And I didn't even know visa कैसे मिलेगा. आपको बैंक बैलेंस चाहिए होता है अमेरिका का वीजा के लिए भी कि आप वापस आ जाओगे, So I just started writing letters in dark to like rich people, and imagine the rich people I knew, Ratan Tata, which I knew. I mean, in my head, Richard Branson, their EAs, their PRs. I was writing emails to I don't know who all, to Indra Nui, and I'm just like writing these non-stop 20 emails in a day in 2010. And one day I got frustrated and I wrote to the President of India. And I have written in that mail saying, I am the pride of India. I should be funded to go to the Academy Awards. Because why not? I've got a call back from the Rashtrapati Bhavan and said, kya chahiye aapko? And I'm just like, I just want to show the film to the Honorable President, Mrs. Pratibha Patil, and then we'll chat in person, phone pe thoda mangungi sab kuch. I went to Delhi, and one thing led to another, and one thing led to another, and my whole trip was sponsored. Air India जो पहले मुझे मना कर चुके थे, जिनको मैं लिख चुकी हूँ email, they gave me my tickets, and Air India only flew to New York. They bought tickets.
Guneet, we're losing you. We're losing you. Guneet, we've lost you a little bit. I think Guneet, we lost you. Sorry, I'm just going to interrupt because tried for a while. Your audio is not clear at all. I hate that the ending is like that. But from our perspective, I think fascinating story, absolutely candid, truly candid. And I hope you continue to be the pride of India, take India to greater heights and go for glory as well. Thank you so much, Guneet. Let me just see if she can come back again. I know we are out of time, but the stories were so fascinating. Had to listen to her. So she talked about resource myopia. She talked about how entrepreneurial she is. She's talked about having the hustle and not being constrained by the identity of, you can't do it. And I think she was also saying in her interactions, many a time people will say, what do you do, even though she's the producer? But I think ultimately the part that she talked about was having the growth mindset, really figuring out who you are and being full of gratitude and looking at each day as a new one. And I'm sure that's what keeps her going from one project to another, and her ambitions and dreams of telling more stories. Just wait for a bit to see if she can come back again. Even this last story of reaching out to President of India is a story for all of us, not to be constrained by our own barriers that all of us have. Who can help, who can't. And universe conspires to help if you really want. Prateek, did we get her?
Yeah, we're just trying her. She should be on any moment now. We'll give it 1 more minute. She's trying to log back in.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, Dilip, you want to just come in for a moment?
You're on mute.
You're on mute, Dilip.
Thank you, Rajkamal, for the interesting questions you asked. And I think it's fantastic how, I think it's a typical story of not only a lady, but for a girl, but for every youngster, how to start. And some of the qualities that we need in the corporate world and in every world which requires people to work is the idea of self-worth, self-efficacy. I think is a big question mark. We think मेरे को तो कोई support नहीं करेगा, क्या मैं कर सकता हूँ? If you look at some of our international sports also, when we go and perform there, we get a lot of silvers, we get a lot of bronze, but we miss the gold. It could be that mindset that, are we actually ready for the gold? Can we get the gold? क्या मुझे मिल सकता है? What do you say? Is that do you agree with that?
I think the fact that, a lot of it is also to do with ambition and aspiration, right?
Yeah.
And not really looking at the rear view window to say who all got it. Because if you do that, innovation will not happen. You will not even test the boundaries, right?
True.
Because you're looking कि भाई 5,000 रुपए मैं क्या करूंगी, घर पे बैठ जाती हूँ, that if that spirit is there, then you won't even break the barriers. Despite lots of judgments, she still persisted. And I think it's basically because she was with herself. Unfortunately, I wish she could have been there. She's not joined back, but fascinating session. Thank you so much, NIIT, for hosting it, and may your learning tribe continue. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Rajkamal. Indeed, a very powerful and an encouraging story, ladies and gentlemen. We thank Guneet and Rajkamal for that lovely talk.